Welcome one and all to the spooky month, October, the time for spooks, kooks and horror. And when it comes to horror in the ttrpg community, there isn't much really to talk about. There's horror games like Call of Cthulhu, Vasin, Candela Obscura. They're trying to make your games scarier, which I feel like is a fruitless endeavour unless your game is about horror, like trying to make D&D scary when your characters are basically fantasy superheroes. I feel like it's a wasted sort of thing to try and pursue. And of course, there are ttrpg horror stories, and these are quite popular on YouTube and talking about it on Reddit in general, but I thought, instead of going through the page, because I tried that, and I just hated going through the entire page and realising that, most of these are incredibly boring to talk about for people to watch me talk about. So I thought, why don't I skip all that and instead talk about a ttrpg horror story of my very own. And a bit of a caveat for the story. When I say it's a ttrpg horror story, it's not going to contain things like abuse or potentially illegal or horrific situations. Like, it's none of that. But it might make outside conversations with a particular person, the DM in question, maybe a bit more uncomfortable, because I've been thinking I should probably talk about this at some point, but again, to really grind it down as to the problem at hand, it was a first-time DM who had big ideas that desperately didn't work, and there was some also quite poor execution of those ideas and the rules in general. So, when I say it's a ttrpg horror story, it's a D&D game, by the way, so what difference does that make? But when I say it's a horror story, I mean, it's not about a horrific experience or whatever. It was about a first-time DM who wasn't that experienced. So, with that in mind, let's talk about it. When I was a first-time DM, I feel like my game was quite bare bones, quite lacking in rules, but high on fun. High on, what do you guys want to do? Let's just do it. Let's make a story. Let's do this stuff. And I feel like I had a lot of problems in it, but it was fun. I feel like the people who played had fun, I had fun, and when I look back at it, I'm like, God, I did everything wrong, basically, but again, still fun. I did so because the first DM I ever played with, not played other people for, if that makes sense, I played with them and thought, this is awful. I really want to make my own games. And this isn't the same DM, by the way. The Horror Story DM is someone who, after me running the game for quite a while, even after running for him for quite a while, he turned around and said, guys, I want to run my own game. And we were like, great, this sounds great. Let's make characters, let's get together. And after whittling some people down, like, we had a full group that dwindled down into the people I could play more regularly with, which is fine. I feel like a lot of groups do that, where they go, let's play, we're all a big group of friends, and then suddenly 8 people becomes 4, and it's like, oh, perfect, well, us 4 can keep playing. Anyway, the story at hand for this campaign, in brief, was basically, we were going somewhere, we got stopped by bandits, sky pirates, sort of thing. We crash landed in a new land we've never been to before, and got mixed up in the politics, which was basically just, there were towns that were perfectly fine, no war or anything going on. The only issue being is that, there's some bandits here, and they're orcs, and they don't like when people step in their business, like us, who defended ourselves, you naughty bastards. So as a result, we were on the hit list, and there was some weird things about they didn't want my character to die because I could do things, because I was an artificer. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What does matter isn't the story. It was the mechanics, the implementation of the mechanics, because this DM had some very good ideas. He had some ideas about what he wanted to implement into the game. He thought that D&D was good, and also Skyrim is good. What if I tried to blend the two together? Sounds great, right? Okay, well, let's try this then. Do you know how in Skyrim, when you want to learn a spell, you have to eat a book? And don't you deny it. When you get a book in Skyrim, your character's like, oh, great. Click whatever you click to get the book, and it goes, bah, and you learn the spell, but the book just disappears. Where'd the book go? It's not in my inventory anymore. Did I eat the book? I ate the book, didn't I? Anyway, so when you eat your book in Skyrim and you learn your spells, he thought, what if that was how spells worked in my game too? Which, if you're thinking about it, that's how wizards get their spells. So he thought, what if all classes were like the wizard, and everyone had to learn spells to get them? I'm gonna be honest, that kind of sounds cool. I've played a lot of just the same D&D for a while now, and I thought, that sounds like a great deviation from what I'm used to. I'm down with it, let's do it. I'm an artificer, I'm a half-caster, so me getting spells was already kind of low on the priority list. But with this, I can now get a bunch more spells. I can find spells, get them in, choose what I want to do on like when I wake up sort of thing. Excellent. What a fun time. Then I looked around the other party members, and we had a cleric, a druid, and a ranger. All of us had spells. The issue is that this incorporation of this spell mechanic was mentioned and brought up after we'd spent a week beforehand preparing our characters. So we prepared artificers, druids, clerics, and rangers, people with spells, and we didn't know about this little deviation in how the rules were going to be implemented in regards to spells. So when we got there, we suddenly realised we're in a lot of trouble. Because another thing that was integrated was, I can't speak today, another thing that was integrated was the fact that when you level up, you don't get spells. You don't get spells when you level up. You only get them from when you find them in the world. Not like how wizards do it. Wizards get spells when they level up, they get 2. But not this game. You only get them when you find them. So that means, okay, that's fine, as long as we find spells in the world, right? Right? And yes, that's the other part of the issue. Not only could we not get spells when we level up, but we couldn't get spells at all. We could only find spells in shops. Fair enough. People selling spell scrolls and books. Fair enough. What's the problem? He's the problem. So when we'd go and try and find one of these spells, they were always incredibly expensive. How expensive? My character, at this point when I tried to buy a spell, I had about 500 gold. Okay, that could buy like a bag of holding, rules as basic sort of thing. Fair enough. Okay, how much is the spell? It's 12,500 gold. Oh, well, it must have been like a great spell. It was Find Steed, a 2nd level spell, and it was more than I could ever possibly attain at this level. And it was a thing where it's like, right, okay, well, fair enough. You just have to keep playing till you eventually come across the dragon and his horde and get the big bucks. Except, at this point, I was level 5. And I had 2nd level spells. But in order to get this 2nd level spell, I need to spend way more than we had got for 5 levels. And in terms of the story, we were no closer to finding a big horde of anything. So us getting spells was not happening. We had our starting spells, and I can't even fathom how sorry I felt for the people who were main casters. I was a half caster as an artificer. The main casters, the druid and the cleric, sat there like, oh, what kind of cleric are you? I'm a light cleric. And what about you? I'm a wildfire druid. Okay. So at least you rely on like your wild shape for the wildfire spirit thing. But you're a guy that doesn't even have like a big suit of armor. So your thing was spells. And we can't get spells. We couldn't find them in the world. There was never a single spell scroll in the world that we found. And we played and went to a lot of different places. A lot. We spent a lot of time in that campaign and we didn't find a single one in the world. I lie. I think we found Greece. Or something incredibly mundane and did not help us at all. We were still cruising on 1st level spells and using our 2nd level spell slots to like boost them a bit, sort of thing. And you might thought, well, okay, this is just like D&D hard mode or whatever you're going for. Fair enough, but we didn't know this going in. So when we would keep playing and we did the whole very stupid thing what you're not supposed to do, by the way. Don't follow my advice because this is old-time Ellis, which I'm ashamed of now. And when all this was going on, we just didn't say anything. We didn't directly confront the person about this. Instead, we kind of just grumbled and didn't like it and went away pissed off and upset, basically. And that was every week for months. Almost like a year for this whole campaign. And we stopped playing because we just could not take it anymore. So that's how grand this whole thing was. So, spells, incredibly hard to get a hold of. Okay, what else can I talk about? Well, let's talk about spells a bit more. A particular spell, of course, Find Steed. So, I managed to eventually talk down the guy that we were buying the spells from, hey, how about you lower the price? And in return, I'll give you a favour, I'll do X, Y, and Z. And the person went, great. Basically, give me all of your money right now, and you'll get the rest when you can get the rest of the money, or you do this other favour, that kind of thing. So I got all my money, I paid for all of it, and I got the spell. I read out the spell scroll of Find Steed. And what happens? The horse on our cart starts to glow. You get it? It found my steed for you. Aren't you laughing? Because he certainly was, while I was gripping my pencil until I want to fucking snap it in half. And just to make it better as well, that wasn't like a, oh, anyway, rug pull, jokes, he's the real spell. No, I legitimately spent all my money in order to buy that. The ability to find my horse, and even better, the actual spell worked as, when I'm in a time of like strain, if I'm nearby my horse, I can use the spell, scroll, to have the horse come to me. Except with none of the benefits of the spell Find Steed. I basically had just a whistle to bring my horse over if it was close. So it's not like Red Dead where the horse just appears out of the ether to, for you to ride it. It was only when it was close by. And if it's close by, I'll just walk back to the horse, thanks. No, actually, let me back up a bit. I didn't spend all my money after I said, hey, can I talk this down? I remember this now, that was a different occasion. What actually happened was, I remember I said, DM, this is a second level spell. If we combined all of our money together, we would not get a tenth of the way towards buying this thing. Why did you set the prices of these things that we can't get organically at such a high price? And I remember the DM rolled his eyes and got like pissed off, like, oh, alright, cool, alright, yeah, it's like 750 gold. And I was like, oh, okay, can I like pitch in a bit now and then pay the rest later, or like, can you guys help me buy it? And yeah, we eventually got it. So it wasn't a case of like me trying to haggle down a fair price in world with the money that I got, which was kind of like a rip-off, and as a result I got a rip-off joke thrown in my face, which already would be a bit weird and vengeful as a GM. No, it was too expensive. I said, that's a bit expensive. He went, ugh, fine, give me it anyway, and when I got it, it was a joke. It was a big fuck you. It was bullshit spell. Actually, in terms of RPG horror stories, there was one thing that happened which... let's not actually talk about that thing, because I'll just give a hint. It involves getting answers out of a captive. And the players at the table going and reeling back in horror at the suggestion and the attempt of an action that one of the NPCs tried. That's all I will say on it. Let your imagination run wild. Another consideration was the fact that this game didn't work on milestones, because there wasn't much in the way of central story to really work on. It worked on XP instead, so we had to fight and get stuff, and then XP would be gathered. Except, here's the thing. XP, the only way to get it was fighting monsters. Fair enough, that's kind of how vanilla XP works. You fight monsters, the XP on the monsters there, that's how you get XP. Fair enough, right? Except, the way that you got XP wasn't, oh, what was the total XP of the fight, and distribute it. No. You had to at least get one hit on a monster to get a share of its XP. Meaning that if you were someone like, oh, I don't know, a ranger or an artificer, someone who could only do like weapon attacks reliably, or use one of their really bad first level spells to actually try and deal a bit more damage to multiple enemies, then you were kind of in a bit of a screwed situation. Like, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to be able to do anything then. I'm going to watch all the guys that can do AoE get a bunch of XP while I'm sat there going, I guess I can't do anything. But another thing as well is that when I say it's distributed, it really was shared. Like, total XP 300, there's 4 players, that means each of you is going to get 75? Yeah, anyway. So you're going to get 75 XP each if all four of you hit. If not, we're going to have to sit there and do the maths on who actually landed a hit and how we're going to distribute all this XP. So it was tedious enough as it was already. But also, this branched and connected into something that was about me specifically that I felt was an incredible kick in the face as it kept going on. And that was, there was magic items to find. We didn't find magic in terms of scrolls to have us get spells as spellcasters, but instead there was items. We bought items. We managed to spend our money on items and what have you. And that's something I want to mention actually about an item that I got. But one item that I did get, of course, was in connection with the XP thing. I got a Wand of Magic Missile. Fair enough. If people know that spell, Magic Missile is a first level spell, but the wand lets you expend extra charges to do even more bolts and shoot even more bolts. Fair enough. And once you've used all the charges, you can't use it again. So you can either spend one charge to do 4 bolts to deal what is that, 4d4 plus 4 damage, big damage, what have you. And I had this magic wand that I could use once per day. I think the charges come back on. So yeah, fair enough. Except you might be starting to cotton on here. If I have a thing that says, hey, when I use this, I will hit the enemy. That means if you've said you can only get a cut of the XP if you hit an enemy, oh great. I now have a way to reliably hit everything. So on the first turn of every combat, I'd go, right, how many enemies are there? Oh, there's 4. I'll expend 1 charge and get them all. I can now fight without feeling like I'm going to get cheapened on the experience and not get a share of the XP that I'm contributing towards. Fair enough. Okay. There's a bunch of enemies. I'll expend a load more of those charges. Boom. Every fight I could do that as long as we had a rest between that. Okay, cool. So, what sort of reaction did that get from the DM? You might be able to guess. It was not positive. It was eye rolls and sick and getting frustrated at me using this item. And it got to the point where I said, DM, if you don't want me to have this, that's fine. I can sell it. If I get the money back for what I sold, if I bought it for, if I get that money back, or get a different item that you prefer that I had, I'll do that instead. But he was like, no, it's fine. And I thought, okay, it's not fine. Subtle psychologists might be able to tell that from that reaction, but yeah, so I just continue on, think, yep, it's fine, I won't use it in every fight, maybe I'll just keep it down here. Except, as fights kept coming, I'd go, okay, every other fight I'll pop some off, because if there's a bunch of enemies, I would be remiss from not using this thing that would let me get a taste of all these different enemies. If there's a bunch of them, and we're really going to have to work hard to get all of them, I thought, oh, okay, cool, bang, I'll just do that right at the first turn, now I'll get a cut of all the XP. Who wouldn't do that, right? And then, it came with a culmination of one time that I used it, and this was towards the end of the campaign, where we decided we're not going to play anymore. And this instance was one of these where it tested me as a player to keep hold of the player etiquette, to not be frustrated myself, to not be angry and lash out and leave. All those horror stories where if it was on the other end, that DM would have been like, my player got angry and walked out on me. So I try to be respectful and, mature about it. So what is the situation? I have a Wand of Magic Missile. I can shoot it up and hit a bunch of enemies. So, when it came to a fight, I used my Magic Missile. And when I did, the spell stopped. It went and petered out. And I thought, oh, weird. I said, do I know what happened? And he went, no, maybe after the fight you might be able to tell. I'm like, okay, fair enough. I'll pocket that. That's my wasted turn. I wonder what's going on in this room. All these enemies that's caused me to not, be able to use this magic item. Fair enough. Let's keep attacking. Then we attacked, kept fighting. Then it got to the end of the combat. We won. We were victorious. And then I turned around and went, hey, NPC that's in this room with us, what's up with the magic item stopping thing? DM, what's happening with this? And he then took a step back and said, let me think of a reason. If you haven't immediately caught on, I immediately caught on and went, oh, let me think of a reason. Now, like after the fight. Meaning, you saw me use this item that you said I could have, and I was like, I can just give it back. You let me use it. I used it, and you just said, no, it's not going to work. And then after the fight, you then said, I didn't have a reason. I didn't have a reason. Just in the fight, you said, nope, doesn't work. You wasted your turn, not using an item. And then after the fight, you said, let me think of a reason why I'm not a dickhead. And it wasn't bad for me to just turn it off and let me think of a logical reason. Because there wasn't one. I didn't walk into that fight with any reason as to why my things didn't work. You just didn't want it to work because you were frustrated. So that's a tip for any DMs who have got this far into this video and watching this. If you are frustrated with something that your player is doing, address it maturely. Because, funnily enough, when you talk to that player, they'll probably have a legitimate reason or a misunderstanding as to what's going on. And when a player tries and tries and tries to do something to make things easier, and you throw it back in their face with like a, no, it doesn't work, with it, and getting frustrated with them, that can be quite harmful, like hurtful to them. I know of a couple of players like across the country, all this kind of stuff, that talk about the games they're having and the frustrations that they have, and they're all rooted around miscommunication and DMs putting work in and being angry at their players because the players aren't appreciative, or they're not doing X, Y, and Z, or they're not just taking the punches, or just not taking jokes and all sorts. And that instance, when I realised that, oh, you just wanted to just say, no, it doesn't work, screw you, I'll think of a reason later, and I'll say it to your face. Maybe not realising that, oh, I've dropped myself in it. I'm like, oh, I didn't have a reason, I guess I'll need to think of one now. You've let me know that you just want to say no. I don't like your thing that I give you, and you were offering to not have anymore. I'll just get angry at you instead. That's a bad thing. But, you know, first time DM, maybe in the future, if he ever DMs again, he will change that quality about himself. Hopefully, because it is really, really awkward and really horrible as a receiving end of a player to experience a DM who is angry at you for an action that they had you have the ability to take, and when you offered to not do it anymore, they said, just do it, it's fine. So, yeah. The next thing in relation to like items and what have you would have to be another item I had, which is the broom of flying. I think it's called the sort of like witchy broom. I can fly all over the place, which is an uncommon item, which is mad considering the fly spell, which has a limit, a spell slot usage, blah blah blah, is a 3rd level spell. Like boots, like winged boots and brooms of flying are incredibly powerful items. I don't know if they got changed in a new edition, but I don't know. Anyway, this wasn't the new edition. This was 2014 D&D. Anyway, I had a broom of flying because I bought it. Now, I was playing a battlesmith artificer. My whole thing was I can use my intelligence to make attack rolls with items because I can closely imbue to items. I mean, even the artillerist, the guy that is like a weaponsmith dude, they don't really get like this connection with magic items. They can make them like any artificer can, but they just make their own guns. Alchemists make their own potions. Battlesmiths, they connect with the weapons that they wield, because if they are made magical with their infusions, they can connect to them and use their intelligence in a way that other people can't. When they're just using their physical strength to lug around a big sword, they can connect to the item and really work out how to use it on a magic sort of way. So, with that in mind, I'm like a magic item savant, really. And this is not me saying, because of this, I should get X, Y, and Z, but let me explain how it was brought down. A broom of flying is quite powerful, right? When I got the broom, I was told, test it out. I tested it out, only to figure out that when I went to use it, it did not obey me in the slightest. In order to use it, in order to take an action, to move, to do anything, I needed to make a roll. Fair enough. People are thinking, that's not that bad. That's not that bad. You know, you're getting used to it. What have you? Okay. Now, I had to make a roll for every single time I'm going to use it. Except, I was then told, this item is like unwieldy, and you're going to have to train with it. How to Train Your Dragon style. Except, I said, okay, cool. How long is that going to take? Probably like multiple months in game. So I have a magic item I can't use because at any point it'll just nosedive me and do killing blow worth of fall damage because I can't use it yet. Because it's a disobedient magic item, except it's not sentient either. It was just, this item doesn't like you, and as a result you have to make a roll for every time, which, fair enough. You might be sat there thinking, well, it's just some sort of adaptation he's made. Fair enough. Well, here's the thing. What roll would you give for trying to figure out how to use a magic item? Maybe just straight intelligence. Maybe arcana. Maybe you might say, well, whatever your spell modifier, but that sort of thing. Is your spell attack modifier? No. I was rolling for performance. Performance. A charisma-based roll. And by the way, performance isn't about taming, or persuasion, or trying to lie, or intimidate. Performance is when you're being musical, when you're being dancey and flouncy, what have you, and you're performing for an audience trying to win the crowd. What has that got to do with wrangling like a magic item? It's not even the same sort of stat region. Never mind the skill that it's not even used for in the slightest. I would never, ever make anyone make a performance roll to try to wield like a magical sword or a magical item, unless it was like, I don't know, is there any like unless it was like the bard musical instruments. That's the only one that I would ever consider using it. I mean, this is just a side point. Have you ever encountered a DM who says, make this kind of roll, this kind of roll, this kind of roll, and they just don't get how skills work? And no matter how many times you say, that's not that skill, they just never take it on board. For example, you might be like, okay, what's in this room? And they go, oh, make an insight check. Okay. 17. Next time, what's in this room? Insight. And you're like, why am I rolling insight? Am I trying to tell the motives of the room? And you might be sitting there thinking, oh, well, cool. You're trying to like figure out, like an investigator, like, oh, like trying to put together the clues of like the drapes are pulled to the side. Therefore, the person must have been. That's investigation. That's putting together clues to pull together an answer. If you're trying to see things, perception, investigation, trying to pull together clues. Insight is telling the motives. It's the lie detection skill. It's the, what is this person thinking? Are they worried? Are they sad? Are they trying to hide something? That's the skill to use for. And performance is for performing, not trying to wrangle. Like, for example, How to Train Your Dragon. Is Hiccup, throughout that movie, using the performance skill? No. So, not only was this item something that I would have to spend months of in-game time working on, I'd have to spend that whole time making rolls for a skill I was extremely bad at, because it was performance to trying to use. And when you sit there and think, oh, well, months of time to spend, well, like, fair enough, just when you're travelling somewhere or you have downtime, do it. We never had downtime. Downtime was not a thing. We would just go into the game and we were there. We were setting off into the distance and we were going places. Travel times, we'd have a map. The full map. Let's say if the map is this big, right? I'm the size of my head. If my eye is a city and my mouth is another city, it would take 1 day. That is the size dimension of this world map that we had to go with, and all of the places of interest were on this map. Therefore, months of in-game time was not going to happen. Because if a single day of travel results in maybe like half an hour of a combat or something happening, or like never any dungeon crawl, just like you're just there doing some stuff, that's not going to be months of time. So basically, Ellis, you're never going to actually get to use this item for its intended purpose. And the other item you have, I hate you, because you keep using it to overcome this bullshit rule that I've set into the way of gaining XP in this game. Meanwhile, the other tools that you have to work with are either, as I've already established, magic items that don't work, spells that you can't get without a whole heap of money, which you don't have, and you can't find them because they're never in the world. So, what is there left? Well, what there is left is a bunch of players sat around going, why are we still playing this? You have individual problems that you keep encountering. We keep having to sit there and listen to the cleric having full 15 to 20 minute conversations with their gods that they worship. They were just sat there casually having conversations with the gods, when I say casual conversation, I mean the most casual conversation. I mean, the god was sat there, like this, having a conversation, literally conversing back and forth for 20 minutes, talking about how the kids, how are things going in hell while you're setting up how people are going to heaven and hell, that sort of thing. It was just, we were sat there watching this the whole time. Then after we were done, because this happened every morning, in-game morning, every in-game morning we have to sit there and listen to this. Then we get up, travel somewhere for an hour, while I try to wrangle with this item. Meanwhile, you have issues as well, that I can only ask this person, maybe after this video or some other time, to really consider what was the issues at hand, because we all had our own wealth of issues that were separate in all the different ways. I remember there was one time, like, I know people are, when they talk about balancing in games, it's a fruitless experience for certain kind of players, because if you're playing something like Dragonbane, for example, where the stat blocks aren't made to create fair fights, they're supposed to make, oh, well, you're fighting a dragon, it's incredibly powerful, right? So if you're going to go up against a dragon, you're going to have a bad time, and there's no, like, level consideration to really go with it. There's no CR system. But in D&D there is. There is a CR system, and so that means when you'd look at a fight, you'd say, okay, how powerful is this creature? And as a result, how fun of a fight we're going to have, considering our level. For example, if we're level 4, would you throw a bone claw at 3 level 4 players? I say that, I think Jacob from XP level 3 he made a video talking about that, where he fought a bone claw at level 1. So apparently, I can't say that, but how about not in the situation that he had, where it was like in a bar, blowing things up to have it fall off a cliff. How about just a room about 20 foot by 20 foot wide, and there was a bone claw in that, which could just one hit anyone in that whole fight, to the point where I was getting knocked down, dragged into a room, healed, while on the floor, getting up to shoot a spell, getting knocked down again, just death rolls the entire time. So that was one fight. I remember another fight against, like, a bunch of creatures in a room, and the total CR for all the creatures in that room was 16. We were level 5, level 4. We were not coming out of that alive. And we did, because we ran. There was all sorts of situations where we were like, you've not really worked out this whole CR system thing, have you? And we're just sat there taking all these lumps. And when we take a hit, when we get attacked, when we take damage, of course there'll be a guffaw of laughter after we get knocked down and encountering problems, and we're sat there like, how can we just play this game normally? Of course there'll be a guffaw of laughter, ha ha ha, you silly bitch. And when that is all compounded alongside NPCs that are just incredibly smug, or one NPC that was an interesting hedge case, because he was a super powerful wizard, like a, you know that trope of like, oh, well, we have Gandalf as our companion, except the only way to make the story work is if he leaves, that sort of thing. Except this wizard, for setting down the logic, his whole thing was, hey, I'm a super powerful wizard, I can just make, like, portals across the realm in order to get everywhere. Every NPC that you will meet, king to the washwomen in the village, they all know me. They all love me. And alongside that, I'm also hiring you guys to do all these different things. Why can't you do it? Why can't you do these awful, horrible things? And like, who knows? Anyway, if we said that, we wouldn't get to play, would we? We wouldn't have quests to go on, so we'll just keep going. How about, though, every time we encounter this, like, wizard, we keep getting items, ways to just, like, summon him, to basically use him as a wrecking ball, like a get out of jail free card. There was just so many instances where this good guy just seemed so sus. We couldn't do anything about him. We couldn't investigate him, and he was preoccupied with his own little magic shop, and he was like, oh no, I'm too busy with my magic shop to save the world. Not like Gandalf, where he's like, I'm much too preoccupied with being locked in Asgard in order to be like, not Isengard? Isengard. I was too locked in Isengard to actually join you guys on the adventure. Instead of that, he's like, no, I can't join in your adventure because I have to hike the prices up on cheese and that kind of thing. So, weird NPCs, and again, this is me just starting like throwing these things off the cuff. So it's probably going to be things that I'm going to miss and probably have to come back at some point or talk about later or never talk about it again, depending on how people even watch this video. But yeah, to get off my chest, this was the most memorable instance of a TTRPG horror story that wasn't like the fault of the game or anything like that. It was like a first-time DM who had all these bright ideas on how to do X, Y, and Z, except all these ideas weren't matched with a thought about how the game would be designed and work well alongside these ideas. There was ideas that were just brought into the game and they would hit us hard. We just have to deal with it, sort of thing. And this was always thrown at us with never any pre-warning. And when we would try to deal with it in our own way, we'd get moaned at, groaned at. I hate when you use that thing. So, yeah, it was a lot of unfun, which caused us to just disperse and go, no more. We want to have fun games. So, of course, I went away and ran my own game. And that's going very well. And a part of that game, the players in that whole session, they started to be DMs themselves. And one DM is running a game for us right now. He ran White Plume Mountain, the Fungeon. He ran, what is it now? The Sun the Citadel. He's running Sun the Citadel right now. We're going to finish that dungeon. And I'll tell you what, he's really good at being a DM. He's like a classic DM. He was back in the 80s playing it. And he's running a game for us now. It's super fun. Someone else did it, and they were like a first-time prodigy at being a GM. They love like stories. So when they came to the game, they brought this insane sort of plot of mystery and folk horror stuff. And I was like, these stories are the ones that I want to see more of. I would love, and I might even do that actually. I'm saying it out loud now. I might do that. I might make a video talking about my favourite DMs that I've played with, or my favourite GMs, or the favourite things that I've seen. It might not be as fun to watch. Someone just sat there going, I love this person and this person for the great things that they've done, but I want to see more positivity. And it doesn't bring me joy at all to sit here and go, this was the worst DM, or this is my TTRPG horror story, but there it is. So, as Halloween approaches, it seems weird to talk about it now, a spooky season after all that, but yeah, as Halloween approaches, we're getting on costumes, preparing for the trick-or-treat time, we're setting up the horror games that we're going to do. As I record this now, tomorrow I'm going to run a Grim Hollow, sort of like end of chapter 1 or chapter 2, sort of boss fight with Maximilian Varlov. I'm excited for more games, more TTRPG stuff, more things to come out. I've just got my copy of Daggerheart, might run some of that. So, let's not dwell on too many negatives, and if you are in a situation where you are encountering a DM that is a RPG horror story sort of DM, then just get out of there. If they're doing horrific, unforgivable stuff, just get out. But if they are misguided, talk to them. If they won't listen, get out of there. You know, you just have to sit there and think, I can't do this every week. If you're going to the sessions every week and you're not having fun, then something needs to change. I know it's hard to say because we don't like that confrontation. We don't like the awkwardness. And of course, I'm saying this as I myself were in that situation. But I have developed that DM that I mentioned, the one that's really good, the classic DM. The first sessions of that game, I then had to pull him like in private message and go, hey, like the way you're doing this, it's kind of not fun or like good. If you're trying doing this. And as soon as I sent that message and he said, I'll try and work on it, that next session, it was insanely good. It was the best session he's ever run, and they've only got better from there. He learned because we communicated. He was, you know, it felt bad on my end to go, maybe do this. I don't like to say this is bad, but I felt like it's not going to be fun going forward if you do this. But you need to start doing that in your games, your groups. And it's hard when they're friends as well. Like, oh, friend I've known for ages. I don't think this is good. I don't think you're doing this right. They might take it the wrong way. But what do you want? Would you rather your friend and you just get along and not have to confront that? Then don't play the game. Don't have them run the game. Maybe suggest something else. Something else fun that you can do. Because we don't want to waste our time after a week of work to then come to whatever session online, in person, someone's house, a gaming cafe, whatever it is. You don't want to go there and just suffer for 4 to 5 or 6 hours or whatever it is every week. You want it to be fun. And it can be fun. So, that's enough from me. I hope you've enjoyed this little taste of TTRPG horror stories, just off the cuff, just talking about it. I knew that me getting into the story, I'd eventually roll into a ball of just like being able to talk about it forever. But yes, that's my TTRPG horror story. A bit longer, it'd be on the long category on the RPG horror stories Reddit. But yeah, if you're going to incorporate ideas, maybe think about how players might need to adapt these changes. Maybe communicate with them about these ideas before you throw them in. And then, you know, at least they're being forewarned. At least they were there to accept it initially. Who knows? That'll be enough for me. I hope you've enjoyed watching. I hope your next game is fantastic. I hope you can get out of whatever weird situation you're in, if you're in a similar situation. And with that, I love you all, and I'll see you next time.